It's all here.
A no-hitter, grand slam.
Have all the fun you want. Every moment, every game.
Make sure you guys tune in.
Catch the White Sox only on NBC Sports Chicago.
Welcome into another episode of the Bulls Talk podcast brought to you by Coors Light. I am Jason Goff, and I am joined by my teammates, K.C. Johnson, Rob Schaefer, and our digital content producer, the man, the myth, the legend, Tony Gill. On today's episode, we discuss the Bulls' cap considerations. Who will they renounce the rights to? Thad, Sato, what's going on with Lonzo Ball, Dennis Schroeder, and is Derrick Rose in play? We also jump into Team USA and what's going on with that thing, and of course, some other basketball talk as well.
Born in the Rockies, Coors Light is lagered cold for a crisp, clean taste. Filtered cold to ensure clarity and brightness. And packaged cold for peak refreshment. Because those who thirst for more deserve the world's most refreshing beer.
Oh, whenever I hear that lady's voice, I know that we are in for trouble. Welcome into the Bulls Talk podcast, brought to you by Coors Light. Jason Goff, Tony Gill, Rob Schaefer, K.C. Johnson. Fellas. Where do you want to start? We can start with Team USA. We can start with Sato and Thad and cap space and all the other stuff that we want to get to. So this will be a choose your adventure. KC, where you want to go? Where you want to start this thing off?
I think we should start in the Bulls, not only because Team USA lost, which we'll get to in a second, but just because obviously this is such a huge, begins such a huge stretch for the organization. Draft on Thursday, free agency starting shortly thereafter. Some decisions are coming up in terms of qualifying offers for free agents and team options for guys like Ryan Arcidiacono, guarantee dates for Tomas Satoransky and Thad Young. So we're gonna basically get a glimpse of how aggressively this management regime is going to approach free agency by some of the decisions that they make this week. They obviously, as we've talked about before, have the opportunity to be a cap space team by renouncing cap holds on many players, including Lauri Markkanen, and also either trying to trade or waive Tomas Satoransky or Thad Young, or they can keep a lot of these guys and kind of work as a team over the cap and sign free agents with exceptions. So the Lonzo Ball to the Bulls talk is not going away until he signs elsewhere. So that's one certainly scenario we're going to be paying attention to here at NBCSportsChicago.com. Anytime the name Derrick Rose is in a tweet or a headline, intrigue is raised. And as I reported, he is one name that is, internally being discussed as well. I mean, they're obviously looking at a lot of different options. So it's going to be really fascinating to see how this plays out.
Yeah, and finally, like you said, Casey, Saturday, I believe, is the deadline for Arch, that $3 million team option and Lowry's qualifying offer. And then Sunday, the day before free agency officially opens, quote unquote, that's when you have the Sato and Young guarantees. I just chuckled thinking of the law offices of Sato and Young as I was saying that. Shout out Stacey King. But yeah, so finally this weekend, some of these tea leaves will become more concrete. Like we'll really have an idea of what free agency is going to look like. Casey, I want to get you to talk a little bit more about Lonzo though, because you wrote about it today, and kind of the considerations that would go into potentially extending an offer sheet for him and actually having that come to fruition. How I know that the Markkanen for Lonzo swap has been kind of always the easiest route to this thing. I mean, they talked about it at the deadline. They're both in restricted free agency. Both, have just always had fuzzy futures with their respective organizations, especially towards the second half of last season. What is your feeling right now in terms of which way you expect the team to go? I don't even know if that's a fair way to frame it, but to me, just the more that I think about it, the more I could absolutely see them being aggressive come next week, because they've been nothing but aggressive ever since, going through half or three quarters of the evaluation season. How feasible do you think the Lonzo stuff is at this point?
Like I said before, I mean, I think it's feasible until it's not. I mean, they've been linked for so long, and they clearly tried to acquire him in March on their terms in the Lauri Markkanen trade. So when there's smoke, there's fire. I mean, those teams have been linked. People I've talked to certainly suggest that Lonzo would be open to playing here. So that's another factor to consider. But the point I tried to make in the piece, guys, is that this is not just a financial thing. This is a roster spot thing, because you're going to have to jettison several pieces to become a player at the level that Lonzo Ball is going to require in restricted free agency. So I'm not saying that that's a wrong move. I'm just saying that that's something to consider. It's not just a matter of, oh, here's 22 million. Let's sign you. No, to get to 20 or 22 million, you're gonna have to say goodbye to some people that, have played pretty vital roles for this franchise for the last couple of years, albeit, not impacting winning on that regular level. So you're right in the sense, Rob, that you've said this managerial regime has been aggressive. Maybe I still am kind of shaking off the cobwebs of covering the last regime. I just feel like Lonzo, because of how much he would cost and because of all that you would have to sacrifice to get there, I personally, this is just me personally, I'm not reporting what management's thinking, but I personally have a hard time getting there, just because, I mean, that's your core then. It's Lonzo, it's Vooch, it's Levine, it's Kobe, and it's Patrick Williams. And then at least in the short term, you're filling out with a lot of minimum guys or small exceptions. So
don't you dare forget about Marko Simonovic when you rattle off the core.
I did forget about Marko Simonovic, who will be here by all indications. So anyway, that's where I sit. But I've been wrong many times before, as I always like to say.
Are we okay with that?
Well,
I'm not.
Casey being wrong.
That core?
I mean, as many words as Casey done typed, or he's been maybe wrong once or twice in the last 20 some odd years, and we okay with that. I know what you know, Tony. So let's have some fun then. Say that all these things do happen. Thad and Sato, you get jettisoned and say renouncing their rights. They open up $21, $22 million of cap space. Which one of these four players makes the Bulls the best in Dennis Schroeder, Lonzo Ball, Derrick Rose, or Jalen Brunson?
That's a good question. I have an answer. I think it's Lonzo out of those four. I'm not necessarily a fan of the Schroeder fit, especially the shooting worries me and doesn't seem to fit the profile of the AKME type, considering what they've said that they valued at the beginning of this thing and then kind of how they've geared the roster since then. Just at his age, what is he, 28, 29, or 27, I think, but turning 28 over the life of a 4-year deal that obviously we know where he values himself because he turned down reportedly that 4-year, $84 million extension. That's 21 a year. You know that you're going to have to get maybe even a little bit higher than the low 20s to get into the game for him. There's just a couple different factors there. Although he always has been a productive kind of starting level guard and a two-way guard. He's not my favorite of that list. I think Rose and Brunson, they're both appealing options to me. I see the intrigue and they're both obviously positive, productive players. But getting a guy like Lonzo at his age and sliding him in with his shooting improvements, obviously his reputation being a pretty good team defender, I think that would really help the Bulls. I think he would slot in kind of either in the guard rotation or even as a wing. And I think he'd help them a good deal. The problem is, like you were talking about, Casey, the price. And to me, because I think some people, I don't know that all fans have this conception, but I think some do, that he would be kind of this half court pick and roll maestro and like surgically, breaking down defenses and bending defenses with his ball handling and creation in a half court setting. Like, I don't know that he's necessarily that guy. He's kind of like a play mover, a transition playmaker. To me, I remember talking about him at the deadline, and to me, he made sense for the previous iteration of this roster before the deadline, more so than this one, because they were playing fast and pushing tempo a lot more than they did after the deadline. So maybe that would kind of be a good balance for the current team that needs to probably play a little bit faster. Billy Donovan subtly implied that at his exit interview. So maybe he would be good in a roster balance perspective. I don't know that he's like the cleanest fit, but I do like Lonzo as a player. And I was poking around, and I believe if my, math is correct in my salary cap sheet kind of layout here, I believe they could get to around $24 million in space by renouncing all the free agents, which obviously there's some pain there, declining Arch's team option, and then waiving Sato, but you can keep Young. And you could get to the space, $24 million starting. You obviously don't necessarily have to give that all to Lonzo, but you could get to around that area code. Oh, and you'd have to
does that? Yeah, I was going to say, does that have waiving Aminu in there?
Yeah, you'd have to waive and stretch Aminu too. But then, like you said, Casey, that leaves you with 10 players, including a second round pick for this year, and Marco, or either 9 or 10 players. So it's tough. I mean, what's tough for me, and it's I don't know who the right answer is here, but it's just the position that the franchise has put itself in. If they do go aggressive and try to make a big move here, whoever it is, like you said, has to be not only the missing piece, but the last piece, because your flexibility is pretty encumbered moving forward from there with the draft capital invested, and obviously then with the salaries that you're going to have tied up for the next couple of years. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know that I'm creative enough to find the solution that's going to make the Bulls a surefire, top 4 or 5 seed in the East with the resources that they have. So fans can hope that the front office is a little bit more creative. That's what they're paid to do. But it's tough. Of those 4 options, though, I see Lonzo as probably the best because of his age and upside. But still, none of these guys are going to be perfect because that's just kind of the situation that they're in.
Right. And you may have to spend a little bit more money than you planned on with all these moves that we talked about. And man, this offseason is all about Patrick Williams getting better. Because if I'm listening to everything that I'm hearing about, if you do sign one of these guys and then you got to go with a bunch of minimum dudes. Like, minimum dudes are cool. Like when Garrett Temple comes in there and he's got a feisty couple weeks in him, and then after that, you try to figure out why is that kind of player so important? Like, the important guys got to become important. And Patrick Williams and Kobe White have to take another step. Obviously, we've been talking about it. I like Dennis Schroeder as much as I do. I'm a big fan of Lonzo Ball's. Always have been. What he did that one year at UCLA, and before that, when he was on everybody's radar in high school, he makes teams feel like pushing the ball ahead or passing the ball is cool. Like, I think he's one of those dudes who changes the culture in that kind of way. This team doesn't have that problem. How many times did we talk about this team getting 25, 28, 29, 30 assists? This team's problem is they don't defend anybody long enough for their offense to actually take a break. When Zach's got to score 40 points, twice a week just to get yourself to have a above 500 a week. I mean, those are the issues. This team does not defend the way it's supposed to. And on top of it, the team turned the ball over a lot, late game situations. For this team, and I'm glad you mentioned it too, Rob, about, Lonzo being some kind of half-court maestro. In the pick and roll, I'll take Dennis Schroeder every day of the week over Lonzo Ball at this current time. And as you mentioned, Dennis has been in the league a little bit longer, but, the people he's been coached by, I got a chance to see some of that stuff in Atlanta very, very early in his career. That's why he's turning down, $84 million, because he understands his value, understands his worth. And I don't, Billy can talk about this team needing to improve its tempo. As long as Nikola Vucevic is on the floor, there's only so much you're going to run. Yeah. There's only so much you're going to run. So if we're talking about improving the tempo when he's off the floor and you guys go small or whatever the case may be, having a running, rim running center like Daniel Gafford before, then yeah. But if Nikola Vucevic is playing 37, 36 minutes a night, you're going to be half courting it for at least half those possessions, if not more. So what are we talking about here? Half courting it with a guy like Lonzo Ball, who, as you mentioned, his shot has improved dramatically. Like this last year. And on top of it, Stan Van Gundy, if you watch some of those Pelican games, the funny things that were happening with guys who were point guards and guys who were supposed to be point guards, Kobe White and Lonzo Ball had this weird thing happening at the same time. One coach was forcing the ball into a guy's hands. And if you were watching what Stan Van Gundy was doing, especially during that hot, 2-3 week shooting stretch that Lonzo had, he was taking the ball out of his hands and allowing him to play more off the ball and finding his rhythm and making him, because Stan actually said, he wanted him to understand what it was to move without the ball and how much easier the game could be for him. So if that development is going to continue and say he's a Chicago Bull, then, we're talking about a half-court offense with a guy who teams are going to make him prove that he can shoot it at that clip for an entire season. So it's no perfect situation, obviously. And, we're talking about it because the point guard position is an issue right now. But, I'm right there neck and neck when it comes to Dennis Schroeder and Lonzo Ball, especially for this team and how much I think they're not going to run. I could be wrong. They could start the season and be greyhounding and up and down. And when Nikola Vucevic catches up, then he catches up. But you don't bring that dude in here to leave him at half court on an outlet pass so you can start running unless you have that kind of team. And right now, how many above the rim finishers does this team have? Like how many finishers, right?
Like legit lob threats. I mean,
guys.
Javonte Green. Oh wait, no,
hey, let me tell you something right now. Javonte Green. The reason why Javonte Green was getting all that love at the end of the hard playing, I thought he was younger than he was. To be honest, right here on this pod, I was like, "Hey man, this dude." And then Casey was like, "Oh no, he damn it. You gonna have to pull that back a little bit." But he looked like that because he looked different from the rest of the guys that he was standing around.
But if Lonzo Ball's throwing alley-oops, Javonte Green isn't catching them because he'll be renounced to clear the cap space. but anyway, several things of what you just said, Jason, because you could make a great point about Vucevic and playing fast. Because I have actually, not only did Billy say it to us in his exit meetings, but I've since heard it in talking to some people who have conversations with people in the organization that is a point of emphasis. Like we need to get back to playing faster. And so, maybe you do need maybe Ball is a better fit in that sense, because I don't think he's a traditional point guard. I'm glad you used the word wing for him, Rob, because in a lot of ways he does create kind of this pass mentality, push the pace mentality. But in a half court situation, you're right, Jason. I agree with you also. You said Dennis Schroeder is more adept in pick and roll situations. I would posit that Derrick Rose is better than both of them in the pick and roll situation. Derrick Rose has become an absolute surgeon in the pick and roll. If you watch him, man, he has gotten so good with his decision making and the way he kind of gets to his spots and dictates the game to be played at his pace. So it's fun that we're chopping it up because we don't have A, money, or B, decision-making power. But
that's why I love this job, Casey. That's why I love this job.
We got no responsibilities here. We just have to kick it around and then kick it over to AK and Mark Eversley to do their jobs, man. But I guarantee you that they're having these same conversations, albeit in a more lucrative and educated fashion than we are. But they're having these same conversations, or have been having them, and have reached their conclusion. I don't know the answer to that as free agency approaches, and that's why this time of year is so fun to chop it up about.
Yeah, I that's so interesting hearing you say that you've heard that, Casey, that they want to play faster, because I just remember all throughout.
Well, he said it to us. First of all, Billy said it to us.
He said it to us, and then when he said that, I was just thinking back to the beginning of the season, and all he talked about for the first half of the season was playing faster, and then it just all got thrown sideways. And again, like they didn't think it was going to be in a bad way. Maybe it's not all in a bad way. Like there are multiple wrinkles an offense can have, but that is interesting. And yeah, so I do lean Lonzo for that reason. I also just the upside. Schroeder is a proven capable NBA player, but I just see the upside as being a little bit lower there. But.
I totally get it. I mean, obviously, one guy's on the ascension, and another guy's like right in the middle of his prime. I could dig it. Where are we at on the marketing situation, Casey? Is it like has there been any movement? Are there any other teams that you're hearing are interested? Like what? It's been very quiet since the end of the season on that front, and I feel like it's a pretty big piece that we're kind of just figuring is a fait accompli. Or am I making too many assumptions here?
No. I mean, that's kind of had I think we'd all agree that it has a feel of an impending divorce. What I would say is, as of late last week, here's what I know is that, the regime is not really kind of committed one way or the other. I think most of us that are following the situation, tracking the situation, would expect a qualifying offer to be proffered, just in the sense that it gives you, at least some safeguarding or insurance against losing an asset for nothing if he only goes out and gets, middling offers in restricted free agency. I can tell you that consistently, his side is working under the assumption, and Lowry voiced this to me when I talked to him in his exit interview, as he beelined his way to Finland, that he's excited to, in his words, approach the business side of basketball, because I think they're under the assumption that there's going to be some nice offers out there. So I don't know what the walkaway point is for Bulls management. As we all know, they've just been over the top effusive, even to the end of their praise of him. And then their actions don't always kind of match their words. So
ask Wendell.
Yeah. But this is the for sure thing, is that the cleanest scenario for this is a sign and trade. And we all know sign and trades they are hard to line up, because you need a lot of cooperation from a lot of different parties. So I personally don't, if you're asking me to guess, I'm just guessing that he signs an offer sheet and the Bulls walk away from it. That's my guess. And we'll see how accurate I am.
Yeah. All right. What else we got, Rob? What's been? I mean, you guys want to get into the Team USA stuff?
Let's do the draft before Team USA. Let's push Team USA as far towards the end as.
Yeah, because I don't have much on Team USA, to be honest.
Keep people listening here.
Yeah. All right.
Just draft Thursday. I mean, Bulls obviously working with one pick, a second round pick, number 38 overall. Like the Simonovic conversation Jason and I had on the pod last week, expectations should be tempered. I don't know that even banding about names from, people in our position, it would be a lot of guesswork at this point, but what are you guys kind of generally hoping that the Bulls address, or maybe the approach that they take to the draft? Or maybe think, if you want to throw out predictions or anything like that, because I have some thoughts there, but I'd be curious to hear what you guys think.
Well, the first thing I would quickly say is, as of now, they only have the 38th pick, because we've seen you nailed it, Rob. This regime has been aggressive, and there are some first round picks to be had, albeit lower level first round picks, because of some teams that have multiple first round picks. I don't see the Bulls having a lot of tradable assets, so I'm not. I don't want to raise expectations here, but I'm just saying that don't rule out. I mean, it could happen that they acquire a first round pick. I'm not expecting that, but it could happen. And then as far as names, I'll be doing probably what a lot of people will be doing is, hitting Google when I hear the name of their second round pick, because Rob and I have joked offline, this is probably the least prepared I've been for a draft, just because it's impossible to see, predict where they're going to fall with so many positions and picks going before them. The only other time I've been less prepared was in 2005, when the Bulls did not have a pick at all, a first round pick at all. I personally think, although you get in danger when you draft for need over talent, I think when you get in the second round, you can probably address need a little bit more.
Yeah.
And we all know the needs are, point guard depth, wing depth, big man depth, particularly if Daniel Tice and Lauri Markkanen are elsewhere, which is what I'm expecting.
They really do need a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
In the depth department. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I feel too, Casey. And I'm because I just think it's the right way to go about drafting, especially when you're dealing with young guys with upside, that you shouldn't really take need into account in the high first round. Obviously this regime echoes that sentiment. That was all they talked about going into last year's draft when they had the number 4 pick. But at 38, or even if you trade a little bit up into the towards the back end of the first round, if they were able to do that by any means, I would like to see them add more in the wing department. I just think they're so shorthanded there, and it's showed up in the past regime when they started this rebuild to last year. I hope that there's a name. I know the 3-and-D archetype gets overused, but I just hope there's a name akin to that kind of style that they're able to add. And honestly, I mean, I'm just speaking purely speculatively here, but I wonder if they go after a guy who's maybe a little bit more established and isn't as much of a prospect, because really, I mean, there's such an onus on this team to win next year that, and AK talked at his exit interview about this second round pick as being a legit asset, a legit tool that they're going to use to fill out this roster going into next season. Like he mentioned that in the same breath as, financial flexibility and trades and everything like that, and free agent signings. So I'll be interested to see what route they go, because obviously last year they were short on roster spots. they went the stash route, and now Simonovic is obviously coming over when there's a little bit more roster flexibility. There's certainly a need for him in the front court, depending on how some of their free agents play out. I'll be interested to see if they go with more of a ready-made guy. And my hope, just because I just really think it's the biggest deficiency of this roster, the lack of two-way wings. If they were able to find someone that's even a rotation level guy at some point in that range, I think it would be a huge get. So we'll see what they do. Obviously, AK came in with a reputation as being a second-round wizard, so that magic would really come in handy for them right now.
I'm sensing a theme for the 21-22 season, the year of the second-round picks. Simonovic, an established rotation player at 38. So here we go.
Yeah, I'll tell you what the postseason theme will be too, if that's the case. If it's the season of second-round picks, staying Big Ten centric, guys. 38th pick, whoever the best shooter is, or a guy who probably didn't fulfill all the potential people thought he had. And there's two guys, Aaron Wiggins, the kid from Maryland. I've been watching him the last few years, and every time I watched that Maryland team, like he would jump out to me, and then he would be quiet, but he's got a decent enough touch. And Joe Wieskamp from Iowa, the dude who the moment I saw him, I was doing shows for Big Ten Radio with my guy Anthony Herron, and the moment I saw him, and Anthony's an Iowa guy, it's like, hey, you got something here. And for whatever reason, his time at Iowa, he never quite took the reins, but he always looked like a pro. So much so that after his freshman year, he threw his name in the draft, and the draft told him, hey, take your ass back to school, put on some weight, and become a killer or become a little bit more aggressive. But there are going to be guys like that who should be first-round picks, have first-round talent, but for whatever reason drop to the second round, the top of the second round. But, yeah, I think shooter, two-way guy, figure it out, especially, I mean, let's be real. We're talking about, Billy Donovan and Pat Williams and some of the moves that these guys have made, right? After a 3-player draft and you take a big swing on a 19-year-old, cool, we're going to see how that develops. You take a big swing on a coach that everybody respects. Now we're going to find out, not just with Marko Simonovic, as KC said, but, digging for diamonds. The Nikola Jokic situation is happening in Denver. Like, make that happen here. And as quiet and as close to the vest as they play this thing, I'm looking forward to seeing what they've been concentrating on. These decisions are the leaks, right? Since we don't get a lot of leaks, and since a lot of people haven't been around because of COVID and all that, you'll be judged solely based on your decisions. Like, we don't know much about thought processes and all that. They got the advocate shut down, and whoever talks out of turn gets thrown off the boat. We're gonna find out what they've been talking about and what they've been thinking. And as Rob mentioned, this city is kind of done waiting. This city's kind of done waiting on the bull, because this year was a pump fake. Let's keep it funky. This year was a major pump fake for a lot of people, and especially so with the trade. Because I had dudes hitting me up who didn't watch Bulls basketball for a couple of years, like, yo, they got an all-star. So yeah, you whoever it is, it better help, whether he's helping in practice or he's helping out there on the floor. It better help, because yeah, the projects, I don't know if they've got as long a leash as they may have had before the trade. So yeah, Aaron Wiggins, Joe Wieskamp, somebody in that. I seen their name mentioned with the Texas kid, Greg Brown. Saw him play a couple of times. Thought he was a lot bigger than he was. At 6'8", 210, 215, something like that. But yeah, they've got some bodies to replace, and I think they need to get more athletic, right? Like, vertical spacing is important in this league now. Throw the ball up above the rim and go get it, or go offensive rebound your way to a good week of wins. Securing rebounds. Flying out, closing out on shot. Like, I want this team to become a little bit more athletic. I think because of Zach, I think people around the country maybe might think this team is a little bit more athletic than it is. When you trade for a guy like Nikola Vucevic, there's certain concessions you're going to have to make on athleticism. You got to supply that. Daniel Gafford went to Washington, and everybody's like, oh, look at what the Bulls missed out on. For whatever reason, that didn't happen here. You got to replace those kind of guys. You have to have guys who are putting pressure on people vertically. So Shooters, 3-and-D dudes, whatever you can find. But these are important picks because this is how you're filling out your roster.
Well, and just to clarify, Jason, before we get to Team USA, they've already nailed the Jokic pick with Simonovic. So now this pick needs to be Monte Morris, if I'm following you correctly.
All right. See? Hey, listen, it's going to come back, and it's going to come back that I said it. So, let's go. Yeah. Yes, this pick needs to be. Hey, if this pick is Monte Morris, then, hey, we're good to go. Because I love
Jason Preston, come on down, baby. Let's go.
Is that the Ohio kid?
What do you say? That's the Ohio. Yeah.
Yeah. See,
that was the first second round point guard that came to my head. I do like watching him though.
The fact go ahead.
No, I'm just trying to stall the Team USA talk for as long as possible.
No. It's gonna be short. It's gonna. That's why I wanted to get it out the way at the top because it's gonna be really short here.
Stories of personal courage you won't hear anywhere else.
When you have cancer, you're like, I don't care if I'm ever going to be the same.
My New Favorite Olympian. New episodes every Wednesday, wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Kareem Maddox, and I've been playing basketball since I was 4 years old. This year, I'm training for the Tokyo Olympics and wondering what it means to be an Olympian.
We didn't want to be used as some sort of political tool.
And what the Olympics mean to all of us.
If one of us can win a gold, then it will mean a lot to the people all over the world.
Because the Olympics have always been about more than just sports.
I do think that I achieved my greatness here.
Subscribe to The Greatness with Kareem Maddox. That's me. Produced by USG Audio and Transmitter Media.
So, what'd you guys think? Because anytime this team loses or has a close game, or it's like, oh no, the world is catching. Shut that shit up. The world is caught up. The world is caught up, and the world plays with each other, and the world understands their roles, and the world isn't changing their team every 4 years. We need to cut this out. Oh my God, they're beating us in the sport that's ours. It ain't ours. That's like us messing around at the World Baseball Classic. Like, man, these Dominicans and Venezuelans are kicking our ass. Like, no shit. Like Patrick Ewing had to come every time a legend comes out. It's like, hey man, people saw the dream team and the world caught up. Yes, it happened. So guess what? When you got Kevin Durant sticking Rudy Gobert, I expect bad things after a while. You know what I mean? Like when you got Damian Lillard skipping it in big shot situations. The problem is, I watched that game. They're trying to play like the Spurs, and everybody on that team is better than anybody on the Spurs. You don't have to pass the ball. Listen, the isolation shit was cool. They bogged down in the third quarter. I saw your tweet about it, KC. That's fine. Listen, somebody's got to take the blame. I want the best players on this team to ISO the hell out of it and win a game, because you got dudes doing things that I'm like, wait a minute, why is Damian Lillard swinging the basketball? Why is this happening? Right? Like you got guys who are, trying to play cool. Some guys who don't want to take their cool off. It's not as bad a look to me as I think it is for everybody else. But yeah, and guess what? Czech Republic might whoop their ass too. Iran's gonna get served.
That one I'm confident about. But think about that. Their winner go home game is against Sado in the Czech Republic, man. It's just amazing, man.
And Sado had a tough game, and the last thing you want to see is Tomas Satoransky on the other side of a tough game. Ask Atlanta every time they played over the last.
Well,
like
they probably
Washington.
Yeah. They probably play somebody else before Team USA, so he'll have one bounce back opportunity. But
they play France, so.
Yeah, there you go. So
that's why it could be a winner go home game for both sides, which is the Sado Zach Bowl. How could you set it up any better than that?
We'll be all over it. Hey, speaking of Zach, so I just want to say two things about that game because there really isn't much to say. I mean, but it was amazing that he was in two high profile possessions. He hit that huge three in the fourth as part of the rally that kind of seemed to give the Americans a cushion and kind of in the get right mode, and then. Obviously, he's on that high-profile possession where three elite shooters miss wide-open looks. Zach, followed by Kevin Durant, although his was slightly contested, you could say, followed by a wide open Drew Holiday corner 3-pointer. I mean, you can't get a better look than that. And Drew obviously played very well, but
he did.
Fresh off the plane, he was really incredible.
But Zach was part of that, man. You know, the possession that stands out, really, that, you know, because they missed 3 good looks there at that 3, and it was just a shame from a Zach Bulls lens.
Yeah, my only thoughts on it were, one, Jason, you asked what my reaction was or how we felt. I was like, this is what we got up for at 6:30 in the morning. Yeah, the only thoughts were, one, they still have a pretty clean path to qualifying for the single elimination quarterfinals. So the sky has not quite fallen yet, although it is on its way down. It's on the descent, I think. And just, you know, you mentioned the isolation thing, Jay, but they could not hit the broadside of a barn in the fourth quarter of that game. I think they shot 4 for 18 in the fourth. Kevin Durant gets in foul trouble early. Midway through the third, he picks up his 4th. Obviously, you only get 5 in international play. And I mean, that's the best player on the team. Damian Lillard's probably the second best player on the team. And they just combined to have a pretty poor shooting game. That's going to sink you. I think they were 7 of 22 together. Durant was 4 of 12 and obviously had that big miss. Casey, like you mentioned, on that open look. So, you know, you score 2 minutes in the last 4 minutes of a game. It's not going to go well. France, this is the team that knocked them out of the 2019 World Cup. So there's some history there. U.S. obviously finished 7th in that competition. So I don't know. I think they're still going to get into obviously the quarterfinals and maybe beyond, but against these teams, the Frances, the Australias, these kind of higher level teams, I don't feel good about them. I was pretty uneasy after the exhibitions, but was willing to remain optimistic. But, you know, when you mentioned the overpassing and things like that, it looks like a team that's, and this isn't an excuse, but it just looks like a team that doesn't really know how to play with each other. But they don't really have the luxury.
Yeah, that's it. They threw a team together of the best players that this country has. And these other teams are like, yeah, we've been waiting. We've been waiting. Dudes, there are dudes who are playing international basketball who have retired, who are on these teams because I know where this person's going to be. I know where that person, like, this ain't no video game. You can't just throw guys out there and think, 2-week training camp in Vegas is going to have me focused on basketball. That's that. I mean, that's as simple as that.
Is there an overcorrection coming soon? I mean, they obviously it's still possible that they win gold here, but the way they looks like they're struggling. The last time there was an extreme. Every time this has happened, where it looks like the world is caught up, there's been an extreme overcorrection. The '92 Dream Team, the 08, Redeem Team. Is that correction coming in the next Olympics? As far as, all right, stop playing around. We're actually going to send the best now.
No, the best gotta say they're going.
And that's the thing, Tony, like a lot of these guys are off of this crazy season too. Like there are a lot of like injury type, just worn down guys that weren't going to come. So I just wonder who, would have been better of the available players. The thing that confused me about, and we've talked about like the playmaking, the front court, like those kind of nitty gritty things, the roster construction. What confused me a little bit is not dipping into the pool of young elite players, your Trae Youngs, your John Morants, because those are the guys that you're going to need to carry you in the next phase of this thing in, the next 2 or 3, Olympic games. I don't know what their situations were, so I shouldn't speculate on like, oh, they didn't make a hard enough run at them or they didn't invite them. So I don't really know what happened behind the scenes there, but I guess it was just a little disappointing to not see more of that age bracket of superstars coming, because that's kind of the next guard. So maybe if it's an overcorrection in that direction, I could see it. But in terms of like the established superstar guys, I mean, they seem loaded enough to me. Like I think they're kind of deeper issues there.
Because there isn't really a game plan to counteract the amount of basketball that the foreign teams can play in terms of cohesion. The USA strategy is we're just more talented than you. No matter how many times you play with each other or your teams overseas, we're just going to out-talent you. And that gap in that style and that strategy is suddenly starting to kind of leave.
I mean, but obviously, like Rob said, and it's a different time to COVID. Like, there's a lot of guys who just don't want to travel at all. But this team looks different with Zion Williamson, Trae Young.
Zion's another one. Yeah, good one.
And Steph Curry, right? This team looks a lot different. So, Yeah, you just gonna have to get guys like a lot of guys are getting ready to stop playing basketball here in the next 4 years too, right? Like you're just gonna have to find out who those next guys are. It's the and I won't say I can't wait, but I've been talking to people around me for a long time. Like, hey man, remember what it was after '98 for a couple of years, where basketball was kind of searching for not who the next Jordan is, but like who's gonna keep the league afloat. Team USA basketball is the same thing. You know, you've had a group of dudes who ran the world in Carmelo and LeBron and all of D Wade and all of Kobe, right? God rest the dead. Like you had these guys who are no longer here, no longer playing basketball, or can say not for me this time, right? Who are those next dudes in the league? The next dudes in the league are playing, for Slovenia and playing for this and playing for Greece, so you got to figure out who those next young guys are, right? And on top of it, do you want those next young guys representing this country? Because I do. I can't wait till Anthony Edwards gets an international stage. You know what I'm saying? and I'm only being real with you because look at the young dudes in the game right now who you're like, yo, he's coming, right? And then do they fit in the select team, Team USA? Do you have to give us a commitment or else we ain't gonna remember when that, I don't even know if that's still going on, but like if you don't give us a commitment now, then you're not playing in the Olympics. Like it's a different cats you're dealing with. So do you want to win, or like what kind of team are you getting ready to put together? Because these young players are coming over at crazy numbers. Like it was a time where if there was 10 European or international players drafted in the draft, you're like, oh, this is a different kind of flavor. Now, we get to the second round of the draft, and I'm like, oh man, let's get these let's get my pen and paper out right now because I got to practice some new names, right?
Yeah.
I'm not coming from college. The second round, what's happening is the evolution of basketball, and sorry to say it, but you got to come tougher than this. This ain't Angola getting elbowed in the chest. These are dudes who are getting anywhere they want to get because they play. One, they're sharpening their swords because they're playing against you for 82 regular season games. Two, they go back to the crib and it's like, oh, the guys who didn't come with me or the guys who aren't in the league, I've already played with them. You see that Spanish team? I forgot Sergio Rodriguez and Rudy Fernandez were still playing basketball, right? Pau Gasol and Marc Gasol are out there. They know where each other's going to be on the floor. They know where they're smart basketball players. They're strong, right? So, hey, man, you got to step your game up. So I don't know how. I don't know what the answer is, but, yeah, Zion Williamson has to be an Olympian for the next three. You got to – if you're not sending your best, you're going to get worked. And for all these people who are talking that college shit, all right, see what happens. You send college boys out there. You have you getting grown men with kids and child support and all that getting served. You think you're gonna send some freshmen out there? All right.
Yeah. Nah. Yeah. It's and those older guys, Pau Gasol, those older guys that have been in the league and not just playing basketball for pride and country, they're giving that information to the next generation. Like they're not holding it for themselves and like going off in the wind and riding off in the sunset. Like they're passing that info down and teaching their next generation so they can keep competing at an all-time level, which is insanely dope. And my dad mentioned this too. He was like, man, this world is they're catching up. Like the last 3 years of foreign players won the MVP.
It's simple. It's simple math.
Yeah.
Man. Simple math. You opened up. When you open up the talent pool, look at any instance, whether it be like segregation, whatever the case may be, right? Southwest Conference back in the day when it was like, hey, we need some brothers on this football field because everybody else is getting brothers. You know what I mean? Like Major League Baseball, when you open up the talent pool, you should expect for the new talent to come in at some point and settle in and be the talent. These teams are really good. It's not like, oh, it's a different kind of basketball. Yeah, the fouls and you can mess with the ball and the cylinder and all that, but
maybe they're just better than you.
They're better teams. You can throw we've seen it. How many runs do you walk into where the two coldest dudes on the court out here serving people, and you go there with the people that you play with normally and kick everybody's ass? And not because you're better. It's because I know where he's going to be. I know where he's deficient at. I know where, I know when I need to get in somebody's ear. Not one player on this team know how to turn anybody else up besides Draymond Green and Kevin Durant. Right? Like Drew and Chris sitting in the back like, we champions. I just got here, fam. I can't stand y'all already. Right? So it's like, getting guys shots and all that other stuff. There's more chemistry involved. People look at basketball far too often as such a simplistic sport. It's beautiful because it's simple, but man, there's a lot more that goes into it. And we see it. We see it. There's no Zach LaVine is as talented as anybody that France has to offer, right? Kevin Durant is talented as anybody that France has to offer. Evan Fournier is out here talking big shit because you know why? He knew it would happen. He knew it would happen. You don't say stuff like that. You're waiting for the win so you could say it, right? He said, individually, you got it. MVPs across the board. Y'all are killing it out here. You got all the dough, but you come in here, we're going to beat you because we got a better team. And it's simple. It's simple. I just like I'm here for the story. Like watching these dudes, you got Devin Booker's. How would it feel to be Devin Booker right now? Like I just watched my team get beat 4 straight times, and y'all send me over here for this shit. Like the picture of
on the plane with Chris and Drew too, huh?
Right. So there's a different level of sorrow. Like, damn, we lost. And Chris and Drew over there be like, yeah, we champions though. So you know what I'm saying? So shout out to all the consternation about Team USA. I'm here for the story. I love it. What else we got before we wrap it up? Is that it?
I think we're good. The only thing is I wish we had talked more about Evan Fournier in the free agent section. Bulls carve out all this cap space.
Here's your chance to roll out season. Evan Fournier, Rob.
Are dudes making themselves more money? Like
I don't know about that. I'm curious about that too. I think you would have to think that evaluators, they know what a guy is in the NBA game. It can't change it unless it's like a prospect level guy, right? Because then you're seeing kind of, all right, maybe we haven't seen this guy in a context like this before. This is what he could look with more opportunity. I think a guy like Fournier who's been in the league long enough, people know who he is in the NBA at this point, right?
Yeah, the big man. I'm glad you mentioned that, Rob, because I forget the big man's name, the Spanish dude who I got a chance to see. And I was like, oh, this is the dude y'all talking about being a lottery pick. Like that's the only way. Like there ain't no secrets out. And even with those guys, there's not many secrets left. Like everybody's got international scouts and everybody talks. I just I hope for Team USA Twitter that these boys get it together because people are getting upset out here about there's some real like tribalistic they're taking our game away from us that I never thought I'd see from basketball fans. Because usually basketball fans are, people like us and we're just chilling, shooting and shit. We don't really get mad. Like we ain't the hockey dudes. We're not the baseball guys who think that a double switch is a brain teaser unlike any other. That's why you don't get their sport. Like basketball people are like, oh, can you play it? Can you not play? There's some real I can't believe this is happening in Team USA. And I'm like, hey man, Dino Raja and Tony Kukoc are a long time ago, dog. Like the world saw that and was like, all right, let's build like Canada. Canada, Andrew Wiggins Sr. I'm sorry, not Andrew Wiggins Sr. RJ Barrett's dad. Yeah. Rohan, I talked to him at Summer League a few years back. That's when Anthony Bennett and all those Canadian dudes were getting drafted. He's like, yo, we got something. Like, we are out here making sure that anybody who ever thought they should play any other sport should play basketball. That's what the rest of these countries are doing.
And then what happened?
Yeah.
Thomas Satoransky happened. Let's go.
All right. That's it. I think we've done enough. Always good to hear you guys' voices. I made it a whole week without being in an Uber that Tony Gill wasn't mentioned.
What a relief. What a relief.
God. I knew somebody else was going to run up to me and ask me, do you know Tony Gill?
Oh, Casey, you missed it.
Yeah, Casey, you missed
What
it.
happened?
I'll text you, brother. I'm in
KC
there.
knows. He listens to all the podcasts when he's not there. KC knows.
Sure he does. No doubt about it.
I missed that one.
Yeah. You know, we'll catch up. Shout out to PointsBet.
Basically, Tony Gill is the most famous and likable personality on this podcast.
Not just this podcast.
In Chicago sports media. Yeah, sorry. Let me correct myself.
Chicago sports media. You know, that Sports Adjacent podcast, boy, is doing numbers. All right. Hey, for Casey Johnson, my man Tony Gill, of course, the young GOAT, Rob Schaefer. I'm Jason Goff. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Bulls Talk Podcast, brought to you by Coors Light. Thank you so much for listening to the Bulls Talk Podcast, brought to you by Coors Light. Remember, new episodes are ready every single Tuesday and Friday, or if there needs to be an emergency pod, we get that out to you as well. Make sure you're getting it from Spotify, Apple Store, Google Play, and especially on your smart speaker when you're just chilling at the crib. Make sure you're rating and reviewing us as well, because you know you love us. And until the next time, as always, be safe and take care of each other.